Quentin Tarantino has said that he could not imagine making a movie without this guest, and IMDb actually reflects that perfectly. He has served as Tarantino's AD for Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, and his latest Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's been working as an assistant director for nearly 3 decades with 70 credits under his belt. Thank you very much to Mr. William Clark for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hey, it's a pleasure, fellas. Thanks for inviting me.
So let's jump right into it. 70 films in 27 years. Do you sleep, or is this one of those multiplicity situations where there are 3 other operating clones of you going at one time?
Well, yeah, I get plenty of rest. That's why I look so young. It's been it's been a long time. We're approaching 30 years now that I've been making movies, so that gives me a lot of time. And fortunately, when I started out, I was able to catch that independent wave, starting with Pulp Fiction right behind your shoulder there. And it started a whole move in the early 90s through the whole 90s where there was a lot of independent pictures. So some of them, were 5 weeks long, and that gives you an opportunity. There was one year where I had 5 films that were at Sundance. So, now it's spread out a little bit more. I only get to make 1, 2 a year, but to really up those numbers was the early years really was quite helpful.
There are so many independent filmmakers watching this right now that are like 5 films in Sundance. Boy, that would be swell.
But I could just get one.
Yeah.
Just get one.
That's amazing.
That's
5
amazing.
films at one time. So you're at the festival making the rounds from one place to another.
Well, I was working. I wasn't at the festival at all. I was making.
You're a bit.
That makes sense. Hey,
There you go.
So and you moved to Los Angeles when you were 20. This is 1991, and you actually didn't go there for filmmaking. You went there just for something else in general, and then you saw the production of White Men Can't Jump, and that's what was it about that got you so? Because you were a broker before that, right?
I was actually 24 in 1991, but thank you for the extra couple of years, and
Sure.
Jim Hemphill for the extra couple of years. But what was happening was, a couple of my college buddies, John and James, were moving out to California from New York, and I said they were moving to Venice Beach, and I said, far out, I'm getting out of here. My friends are criminals. I got to get out of here before I become one. So I'm gonna come look for a 3-bedroom instead of a 2-bedroom, and so they did. So I was able to move right into a small house, little 3-bedroom shack in Venice Beach. And I had a little money because I had done all right in the stock market. I just was normal. I wasn't churning and burning like the Wolf of Wall Street. I was doing okay. And plus I was 24 years old. Beer wasn't very expensive, nor was pasta. So I had no problems. So I didn't do anything for a couple of months. I just kind of played a lot of ping pong, drank beer, tried to learn how to surf. That didn't work out. And would hang out at a small bar on the boardwalk there called the Venice Bistro, which looks right out onto the ocean. They open up the windows and you sit, on the boardwalk basically, and order a pitcher of Moosehead. And the real reason I would go was, obviously the beach, but right next door used to be, it still says Cadillac Hotel, but I don't believe it's the Cadillac Hotel next to it anymore. And it was a big, bright pink hotel on Venice Beach. So, groups of girls would come stay at the hotel. So I would go down to the Venice Bistro, and, it didn't take long before you get a posse of girls coming back to get their day started. Hello, you live here. So I was going there all the time, and I would read the want ad, see what I'm going to do next. I started interviewing for jobs. I actually was offered a job with the Los Angeles Clippers, which I thought I was going to take because I'm a big sports fan then and now. So I was, having a good sales background from being a broker, I figured I'll go sell the group in corporate tickets for the Clippers. Why not? That sounds like a fun thing to do. And in this process, as I'm going through it, White Men Can't Jump came and turned the parking lot in front of that bar on the beach into basketball courts. And first I noticed because all the mobile homes were moved out, And, and then they painted the asphalt, and I knew it wasn't a government works project because it happened very fast.
Mm-hmm.
It was really quick. So I knew it wasn't an improvement situation because nothing ever happens that fast through the bureaucracy. And I'm like, I got to figure out what the heck's going on. So I just keep going back. And then sure enough, the following week, in comes this circus. Ron Shelton's White Men Can't Jump. And there's Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. And, there's this guy in the middle. All right, everybody, be quiet. Here we go. And roll sound, camera, and action. And, but Ron is sitting in the chair. I'm like, I recognize that guy. He's the director. That's far out. Well, what the heck is that guy doing in the middle, running might as well be the ringmaster of the circus there. And I was intrigued by that position. And so I would just go back and watch every day, just watch the living, breathing organism, I like to call it, of the set, because there's so many things going on in the periphery, in the middle, always, and then you go see where the base camp is, and there's all sorts of shit going on there. And I was like, this is wild. I had no idea. First off, I knew people had to make movies because that's the way it is. People make things, whatever it is, but I never really put it together that I could be a person who could make movies. It just never even occurred to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta, these people are out here on the beach in shorts and t-shirts, and this is a job. They're getting paid to do this. Is unbelievable. So I saw the guy with the walkie-talkie and his shorts and his t-shirts, and he's telling the girl in the bikini when to rollerblade back and forth. I just went up to him. I said, what do you do? What is your job? And he, because I figured I can do that. I can tell him. And he told me he's a production assistant, and I had you do it. And he explained to me, oh, my father was this and that. I'm like, interesting. So I just started reading the Hollywood Reporter. I would just every day just get the Hollywood Reporter, see what was going on, start looking through the want ads. And I saw an advertisement for an internship, an office internship. And I figured, okay, let me call them up. And I got an interview, with my resume and my letter of recommendation, because, I left on my own terms in Boston from Smith Barney. And I had a very nice letter of recommendation from Joe Cringdon, my branch manager. And that helped me get in the door into a lot of places about sales and in film, just because, look, this dude does all this. That's great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it, I'm taking the bus from Venice to Studio City on the Monday of the interview, and I see another advertisement with the same typeface, same phone number, and they're looking for a product placement person. Now, this was relatively new. E.T. was only 8-10 years earlier, and the Reese's Pieces and all that. So there wasn't really all of these boutique companies that are specializing, and now it's gone even into the studios that have their own departments for product placement into films, cars and all that jazz. And I went into the interview and I asked, is this your ad as well? And they said, yes. They were offering product placement person $500 a week. And they said, yes. I said, I'll tell you what. I just got out of Boston where I'm asking people for $10,000 over the phone for a minimum of investment. And I had over $1 million under management. I will get product for your movie. I will do this job and I'll do it for free. You can keep your $500 in exchange for an internship on the set, this office internship, and then an internship on the set. All for free. You don't have to pay me anything. I just need the experience and I'll do all these things. I'll take care. And they're like, well, this seems like a pretty good deal. And they took the deal. And that was a picture called Frozen Assets, a Shelley Long, Corbin Burnson comedy about a sperm bank. Corbin Burnson thinks he's going to manage a bank. It turns out to be Shelley Long's a doctor at a sperm bank. They fall in love. Hijinks ensue. Larry Miller and I loved it. I had such a great time. It was up in Portland. I drove up to Portland on myself. My buddy Dudley was up there renovating houses. We stayed in a big empty Victorian house that was the next to be renovated, no furniture. And And I had the time of my life, for that 5-6 weeks of making that film. And I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and give this a try. Let's see what we can do. And that's when I started taking every Tuesday, the Hollywood Reporter would come out with the weekly production listings. And I would break them down into sections of the Thomas Guide for anybody old Los Angelinos who know we used to have to use maps. And the Thomas Guide was like a 1.5 inch thick map of all of Los Angeles. And I would break it into sections of the Thomas Guide and show up at each of these places with a resume and a smile. I learned how to break into Paramount through the mailroom. I would get into Paramount. At Warner Brothers, I would go buy a taco for $1 at the Taco Bell, wait for a group of people to walk out of Gate 5. They'd go buy their tacos. They'd walk back towards Gate 5. I'd just kind of, a couple of steps behind them, getting closer and closer as we got to the gate, and I flashed my Ace Ventura card. By the time they got to me, the 7th, 8th, 1st, they didn't look anymore. This was all pre 9/11. Yeah. I'd quickly eat the taco and then start going to all the bungalows, and it was I got into Disney, and that's how I got Sister Act, which was the second movie that I was lucky enough to work on. And I would just make a mission that I would take my Tuesdays, plan my course for the rest of the week and the following Monday, and then every day make a minimum of showing up at 10 places a day with a resume and a smile until somebody would give me a job. And that I did that for about a year and a half.
Do you think that approach would still work today?
Obviously you're not going to be able to break into the lots today. That you're not going to be able to sneak into any of the lots today. The post 9/11 world is much safer, much more secure in that sense. But I think it would work to a certain, now COVID adds a whole nother element to that too, but this will pass. But I do think, there are a lot of independent films that still, just have an office off the 3rd Street Promenade, or have an office on Wilshire, in mid Wilshire. There's companies out there, and you can get in, because when I ran out of places that from the weekly production reports, because you run out of places to go, I started to I would go to the library and photocopy against the law, because you're not supposed to do this, but I would photocopy the Hollywood production listing, the Hollywood directory, which just had listings of all production companies. I just started going to production companies. Hey, if you got anything coming up, I'll do anything, and so I did little things too. I went and scouted locations for one infomercial guy, never got paid, but, I just started, it just, even if I don't know many of those people anymore, but, it's one now, actually, I went into a company called Smart Egg. And there was a young lady behind the desk who was completely surprised. It was one room in another office, and she just had her little desk. Her name was Shelley Strong, and she's now the VP of production at DreamWorks. So, there are some that I have made it through, but most of the people that I met, 30 years ago, all out here living, trying to find that dream, open a coffee shop in Independence, or, dealing art in Ohio, all sorts of different things. It's hard. It's tough to break in. Right. But once you get there, it's a thrill.
Now, I was going to say, the story goes, it was by accident, literally, that you wound up working with Quentin Tarantino for the first time on Pulp Fiction. Can you talk to us about that, how that happened, and what was that like?
It was a complete accident. I had just finished if it was $500,000, it was a lot, movie in Provincetown, Massachusetts, called Unconditional Love. And I was the first AD on that, so I was pretty excited. I'd only been in the business for 3 years, and there I was, being first on this movie. I had seconded about 5, 6 movies, PA'd only on 3, was second on 1. So it was all, once I got my traction, it really started to move quickly, from one to another. And I was at a dinner party for a friend of mine, Eric Davies, who was he was the first AD, was having a little birthday get together, and Paul Hellerman, I happened to be sitting. There's only 6, 7 people at the party, at the dinner, And Paul Hellerman, who I happened to sit next to, was the line producer on Pulp Fiction. And he kind of leans over to me and says, Eric tells me you're a pretty good AD. Well, I like to think so, and thank you. I'll thank him for that. And he's like, well, look, I just learned we're a week into our little movie, he called it. and it was a little movie. It was a little movie that could. We're a week into our little movie, and our second assistant director, I learned, got into a car accident on the way home last night, and he's unable to work. Would you be able to come in on Monday and be willing to meet with our first and second AD and see if it's a fit? Maybe you can help me out for a couple of weeks in his absence. I'm like, Paul, I'm really kind of a first AD now. But if it's going to help you and you're a friend of ours, I'll come on down. And so I did. I showed up on that following Monday. It was Junkyard Day. We were at that junkyard, the Wolf and Sam and John and Brigitte. And it was just, you can feel the electricity. I had been on several sets. I mentioned Sister Act, and I had done a picture called $20, and I had done a slew of smaller independent films. But this was also a small independent film, bigger than those, but still a small independent film. But you could feel the electricity. You could feel the electricity coming from the 27-year-old director running around laughing and having a good time, and in totally in his element. And you can see it immediately. And you just felt it from, even the cast, and it continued, because nobody was there to break the bank. Nobody was there getting, this was not the big payday, movie that they were looking for. Everybody was there because this is a very interesting and different project. And Reservoir Dogs, which I did not know at the time, was really a kind of a breakthrough heist film where you never saw the heist.
Yeah.
And so people were very intrigued by all of this. So it really had a very different feel than many things I was on. And I hit it off with Sam Mahoney, the first AD, and Kelly Kieran, the second AD. And they said, yeah, can you come tomorrow? Call time 7 a.m. I said, I'll be there. Yeah. And so, I became the second AD on Pulp Fiction for 2 weeks until John Hyde Jr., the man who was, the young man at the time who was injured in the car accident, was able to return. And he came back, and it was over Labor Day. September's Labor Day, right? Labor Day, yeah. It was over the Labor Day weekend that that Friday was my last day. And unbeknownst to me, over that Labor Day weekend, Andre Sekula, the cameraman, got into a car accident with his girlfriend in New Mexico. They drove off a cliff. He broke his leg and he was hospitalized. And so unbeknownst to me again, that Tuesday, Monday was off, it was the holiday. That Tuesday, they took off, they shut down. And I got a call on that Tuesday and asking me to come in the next day to be the second AD, because Kelly Kieran was double timing. She was also the set medic. They sent her out to New Mexico to get the prognosis and to assist with Andre's rapid return to Los Angeles. And they asked me to be the second AD for the next couple of days while Kelly went and did that. So I'm like, great. And Kelly was an experienced second AD, so she was getting paid pretty well. And so I was happy. For 2 days, I had made more money than I had made since I was a broker, which was 2.5 years ago. So me and my roommate Poodle went out that night to celebrate that I had made a couple extra dollars being the second AD on Pulp Fiction for 2 days. And that was that Friday. I got a call at 7 o'clock in the morning, like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? And it was Kelly. Where are you? I'm like, yesterday was my last day again. What do you mean, where am I? He's like, I know, I'm just come on down here. Paul would like to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, I need an hour. Because at that age, at 26, 27, that's all you need. Now I need 3 weeks. Now I need 3 weeks after a night like that. Yeah. So I went down and talked to Paul, while we're shooting on stage in Culver City, and Paul explained that because we went down the one day, we have to combine 3 days into two, and one of the days is going to require 2 company moves from Culver City. We have to shoot a scene in Culver City at the stages, a scene in the Hollywood Hills, with Ving and Uma on the phone, Ving on the phone out by the pool. And we have to shoot a scene downtown with John and Sam walking through the bowels after Bruce had already escaped, with Paul Calderon. Answered, he's not here, And nobody was sure exactly how to do it. So Paul asked me if I would production manage that day. He's like, you tell me what you need and we'll make it happen. But I need you to make this day happen. I got to worry about the rest of the movie. You worry about this day, and I'm not going to think about it. You tell me how we're going to do that day. And, there were a couple of people, the transportation corps, I remember were laughing at me every day. He's like, oh, you're getting set up. Oh, you're getting set up. There's no way. You're getting a 16-hour day. And everybody was really pulling up their bootstraps ready for that day to be a very long day. And we just, I had all the ducks in a row. I got a little lucky because for whatever reason, this is even before Nextels. This is certainly before cell phones. I was able to communicate with the set from Culver City to the Hollywood Hills, which is about 10 miles away, via the walkie-talkie.
Oh, nice.
I still don't know how that was possible, but on that day, it was possible, and I was able to communicate with them. And I had the vans all labeled. I had nobody going to all 3 locations except for Quentin, Andre, Marty, the script supervisor, just a couple of people. But there was everything was labeled, everything was listed, every van, who was supposed to be in every van. Everything was, and it worked like clockwork. And we finished in under 12 hours. It was one of our shortest days. And at the end of the day, Lawrence Bender and Paul Hellerman called me back into the office, and they're like, look, we can't pay you the second AD rate like we've been paying you for the 2 weeks, these past week and a half, but we'd like you to stay. We got Jackrabbit Slims coming up, and, we don't know what we'll call you, but would you just stay for the rest of the movie? And I'm like, yes, because we were having a great time too. I mean, we're going out every Friday night, as I'm saying, Quentin was 27. Most of the crew was young, and it was just really a magical experience. So I was happy to stay for the remainder of the show. And towards the end, we had to, run 2 units at some time. So I was firsting, it wasn't a second unit because Quentin would go back and forth. Mm-hmm. Nobody directs anything except for Quentin. Mm-hmm. So, even Phil Lamar's head exploding in the back of the car. So I set it up. I call Quentin over. We shoot it. And yeah, that was great. I love it. Okay. And then back to Chris Walken, in the Watch story.
That's crazy.
And it just was really a wonderful experience. And then we had the rap party at Jackrabbit Slims, and I got to dance with Kelly Preston. It was just, I smoked weed with Chris Walken. Just mind-blowing things, that's legend. Really were just
everything.
Really just wonderful. And a couple of years go by, I continue working, and now I had Pulp Fiction on my resume, which people had heard of, even though it hadn't completely come out, but they, everybody knew about it. And so I was getting, better movies just from that. And, a couple of years go by, and Paul Hellerman calls me again and says, hey, Quentin wants to talk to you. I'm like, okay, about what? What did I do? Am I everything okay? And it was for Jackie Brown. And so, there I am in the business for 5.5 years, and I'm the first AD on Jackie Brown. And that was an experience, you just have to, I remember rapping Bob De Niro. We were shooting, the last scene he shot was with Simone in the house. Oh, baby, 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 love.
Share a scene.
Yeah, the rockin'. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, just because he is rocking so just manically, just
Something's going on there.
yeah, it tickled me. That's great.
It was really a joy to watch. It was watching him and Sam work together, and Bridget too. These people are different people. They're Bridget, Sam, and Bob, and then the camera turns on, and De Niro, action, and his posture change. Everything changes, and all of a sudden he's the character. He's no longer about Robert De Niro. I mean, he really becomes it. It was really an exciting thing for me to be able to watch all that. And so that we wrapped that scene, and that's a wrap on Bob De Niro for the movie. Thank you very much. And, I'm a huge Godfather fan. One of my favorite movies, even before, since I was a little boy, because, my mother grew up in that neighborhood. So I felt a big connection to that movie as a kid. Even before I became such a lover of film that I am now, that was my favorite movie. And I'm just standing on the driveway of this house in Compton thinking, I can't believe I just wrapped Bob De Niro for the movie. I can't believe that just came out of my mouth to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he thanked me, and his driver pulls up, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, it's still dark. The moon is full. I remember seeing the moon, looking at the moon, just like, oh my God, what is happening? And his driver pulls up and he goes, Bill, Bob would like to invite you back to his trailer for a toast. All right. So I went back to, and Quentin was already in there, and Bender and me, Quentin, Lawrence, and De Niro did shots till like 9 o'clock in the morning, talking about movies, talking about going to the movies. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, that's gotta be surreal to
Yeah.
grow up watching somebody and idolizing somebody, and now your coworkers having a drink after work, casually.
Yeah, it didn't turn out to be too casual. It was too bad there wasn't an Uber.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
That was the early journey with Quentin, and it was a magical experience, and still is, quite frankly.
That lives up to what I would expect that situation to be like that, like a fantasy almost coming, a dream coming true. That's a perfect story. Now, I read in an interview with you that Uma Thurman prefers that you are the one that get her to set because she likes the way you wake her up. So how does Uma Thurman like to be awakened?
Well, that's kind of what it was. It was on Pulp Fiction, and I had been there for a while, and she kind of liked me. She thought I was funny and cute, and she was only 23 years old at that time. You got to keep in mind, it wasn't, but she was just coming out of, she had been married to Gary Oldman, I believe. And they, so it was difficult. She's trying to carry this movie, and she's only 23 years old. I mean, I really respect the hell out of her. That's a lot of weight to carry as a very young person. And she did it. And so she would like to rest as much as she could in between takes, in between setups, in between scenes. And she just requested that I would be, if she's taking a nap, that I would wake her up. And I don't know why. I still don't know why. I've never asked her. And I would just, gently knock on, Uma, and and then I'd go in. She'd walk into the trailer, and I'd just touch her foot, Uma, we're gonna need you in 20 minutes. She said, oh, Bill, okay. And then I'd go out of the trailer and breathe again, because she was stunning. I mean, what a goddess, really, a statuesque goddess.
That's why I was curious, just on the off chance I'm ever in the situation where I need to wake Uma Thurman up. I just wanted to be completely prepared for that.
There you go.
One thing I do suggest is you do take a second before you do wake her up, look at what you're about to do, and thank God that he put you on this earth to be in this moment in time, because it was really, it was special too, because I like, most of America was head over heels in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
And Quentin, all of us, everybody was. Everybody was.
Yeah, it had to have been amazing.
Now, the Tarantino Clark partnership continued 3 years later with Jackie Brown, as you brought up earlier. Now, this seemed like a much more scaled back production as opposed to when you were with him in Pulp Fiction. So, let me ask you this: as an AD, could you discuss how the different levels of the sets and everything from that nature?
But I don't know if it was really a scale back. And what I would say is what Quentin wanted was different from Jackie Brown than from what he wanted. You know, being such an astute filmmaker, he wanted to feel trapped. You know, so where we built, you know, Jackrabbit Slims, and we wanted to feel the expanse of the South Bay and all of Los Angeles in Pulp Fiction. He wanted to feel the tightness of, you know, Pam Grier's apartment, Jackie Brown's apartment. He wanted it to be very practical, and he also, because of the resounding success, I mean, the amazing success of Pulp Fiction, did not want to become the irresponsible diva filmmaker. So he wanted to be constricted not only for the characters and for the feel of the picture, but for his own mental well-being and progression as a director. And so I just embraced it. Whatever I can do to help you, and that's what we did. The sets were all practical. We shot the airplane on stage. Cabo Air was the inside the airplane was the only thing that was really on stage that I can recall. We shot at the airport. We shot at Jackie Brown's house in the South Bay. Max Cherry's office was actually a bail bonds office in Hawthorne. The Cockatoo Inn was a real place that sadly isn't there anymore, but it was legit. It was a real place, and he really wanted to feel that the tightness of Jackie Brown being caught in between the law and the mob, and he wanted that feeling to be in the film, and I think we succeeded in it. You feel those tight places, you feel the crampedness.
I think that's your favorite.
It is my it's not just my favorite Tarantino film. This is one of my top 5 films of all time. Okay. And we, to what you just said there, we talked about this when we did Jackie Brown last season. We did Jackie Brown, and when we talked about it, one of the things that we came to a conclusion on, like, he was an ultimate Pulp Fiction fan, and I was the ultimate Jackie Brown fan. And when we talked about it, one of the things he came around on was, he had a love for Jackie Brown now, because what you just said of how restricted Tarantino was in the making of it. There were no mass explosions. There was nothing crazy going on. It was all in the dialogue and the action and of the actors, and you felt the story. So you guys definitely succeeded from that. Listen, lifelong fan.
I even told him on one of our Friday night parties, which was, we're getting a little older now, so we settled down a bit. But in Jackie Brown days, I was 30, he was 32, 33 or something. So one of the most important jobs for the location manager was finding the place where we would party on Friday night, where as soon as we wrap, where are we going? And, sometimes we wrap 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So the location manager has to open it up. Has to find a place that's going to open so we can come in and do what we do. And at one of these events, I remember talking to him quietly. He pulled me aside actually first and was very gracious in thanking me. He told me he had never really known what a first AD had done, even though he had done 2 movies, and now he knows what a first AD does. And I was like, well, that's very nice of you to say, thank you. And I told him back, I'm like, I'm really impressed by your courage. I mean, you're coming off a pop culture classic. I don't know if I knew that at the time, but a monstrous pop culture success in Pulp Fiction. And you're and you're moving it into a middle-aged love story by Elmore Leonard, which is, that's that takes some fucking nads. That's a gutsy decision on your part, and I applaud your courage, and I'm excited to be able to help you. And that's exactly what it was. So that's why it never got the, everybody's the Pulp Fiction fan. I'm happy to hear that you're in your top 5 is Jackie Brown, because I agree. I think it is a masterful film. I think it's really, I know it's really well done. But, you add in the music and the tone and the feeling.
We're on 110th Street.
Yeah, I fall into I appreciate Jackie Brown for the classic, for it is masterful filmmaking, masterful storytelling. The pacing is perfect, but I fall into the Pulp Fiction camp mainly because just when I want to watch something, when I want to be purely entertained, Pulp Fiction does it for me every time.
It's an adrenaline needle to the heart will do that every time.
Yeah.
And it's nice you don't have to start at the beginning.
Yeah. It works well for me. So, shut that mouth or I'll come over there and start her head. This is one of the best lines to one of the best openings in any movie. You worked on Way the Gun, and this is not a Tarantino film, but if somebody were to tell me that Tarantino made this movie, I would believe it easily. And I was wondering, as someone that's worked with Tarantino so much, when you were working on this, did you see similarities there, or inspiration?
Well, certainly. I mean, that's Chris McQuarrie was the director and writer of that piece, and he's now Mr. Mission Impossible, and he had already won his Oscar for Usual Suspects. So, there was a similarity right there with their love of the underworld. And so, yes, I recognize that parallel. And I think, in some ways, that's kind of why I got the job, because of my connection to Ted, because obviously he was a fan of another writer-director like he was at that time trying to be. It was his first foray into directing. He had won an Oscar for writing. It was an interesting thing. He admired it, wanted it, but didn't want to be too close to it because he wanted to establish his own identity as well. And what I really love about The Way of the Gun, which I see is getting a little bit of cult recognition these days, whereas Out of the Box it really didn't come out with gangbusters, is there is no redeemable character in that whole movie. The only person who is innocent is the unborn baby, and is born right at the end of the movie. That's the only innocent player of anybody. Parker, Landau, Jeffrey Lewis, who was amazing. Juliette Lewis was great. James Caan was a great bad guy. I mean, there was no good guys. There was no, oh, I like that. Even Sarah Silverman was. I think he said that to Sarah Silverman.
Yeah, get your fucking ass off the fucking car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's get off the car with your fucking ass. It was very funny the way she worded that. And then the way she looks at her boyfriend after he says that line back to her, he looks at her boyfriend like, yeah, you want to do the man dance? Was that, do you remember shooting that part? Was that, I'm just curious, because I love that moment so much. I'm curious how that came to be. How much of it was on the page and how much just kind of came out organically when they started working on the scene.
An interesting thing about that, it was on the page. That there was a little bit of riffing, I believe, but more from Sarah Silverman. That's just her thing a little bit. But most of it was really on the page. The stuff that stayed was on the page. But the interesting thing about that is that's the first scene of the movie. But what had been when we read the script was a collection of circumstances with Parker and Landau, Ryan Phillippe and Benicio del Toro, being pricks in quick cuts in different places. And, we'd kind of put these in the schedule. And there was it involved explosions. It involved, fights. It involved all this stuff, but they're all like 1/8 of a page. And there was plenty of other material to shoot over the course of the 50 days that we had to do it in Salt Lake City. And one of my favorite cameramen was is a man named Dick Pope, and he was the cameraman on The Way of the Gun. And we're about to go out on the Tech Scout, and he comes into my office and he's distressed. And I'm like, what's? I called him the Pontiff. Pontiff, what's the matter? What's the problem? What's going on? He's like, I really feel great about everything, but it was called the trailer, which was these collection of scenes at the beginning of the movie. I really don't know how to achieve the trailer. Everything you put together with the schedule, I love the flow, the idea. I think we've got time. This will be hard. This will be great. But I'm not worried about anything except for the trailer, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm like, well, I have that same feeling. These are 1/8 of a page, and we're sticking it, in the beginning of the brothel where we have big shootout, in the middle of the day. These little pieces that are stuck into days, and they don't really belong there. But for, things that take effort, when you're going to blow up a car, you can't just say, okay, we're going to run over here and blow it up now. You gotta try to keep people safe. That's all part of the process. And of course you got to light it, and you got to, do it all properly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes get more cameras and whatnot. And so I said, okay, well, let's get Kenny Koken, and we'll tell Kenny, and then let's get Chris, and we'll tell Chris, and I remember everybody was actually even waiting out in the bus for us to leave on the Tech Scout. And Chris comes on into, I remember we had it in my little office, no windows in Salt Lake, and me and the Pontiff, Dick Pope, tell Chris, look, we feel great. I tell I basically repeat what Dick said, but I'm saying it now to Chris. That's just how it works sometimes. And Chris goes, oh, well, I don't really need that. I don't like, I wrote that so I could sell the thing. Let's get rid of it. It's great to start right there in the alley with these guys outside the club. And that's, so we just wiped it off the Tech Scout, took it off the schedule, and that was the beginning. Now there's the new beginning of the movie. It was right there. Yeah. So that was an interesting thing. And it was an important lesson for me. This is 2000, I guess we shot this. It was an important lesson for me, to express your concerns. Don't just swallow it and say everything's going to be fine. If you have a concern, express the concern, talk about it. I mean, the solution's not always going to be, we don't need it, but we will work out a solution. We will find the solution. We will solve the problems together.
Some like actor up and coming that was auditioned and got cast for scene 1B had already called everybody. I'm going to be in this scene with Benicio.
I've been pumping out. I'm out there. This is what we talked about, man. This is what we fought for.
And then it all comes down to the writing. Throw it out. I just wanted that for the trailer.
Oh man, that's amazing.
I remember one was blowing up a car. Another one was beating up a guy in a wheelchair. It was just these silly little things to show that these two guys are not really nice people. Yeah. And Chris was, to his credit, was like, I would prefer that we learn that they're not nice people. And if we learn it in that first scene with, the quote you remember.
Oh, well, and he pushes Benicio, he pushes the boyfriend out of the way to punch the girl. Like, I'm like, okay, this is the guy we're following. All right, let's go.
Right. So we quickly learned that we're dealing with the true deplorables.
Yeah. Very entertaining from beginning to end, though. They were great. In 2002, you worked on Rules of Attraction, and this is another great film. I remember seeing it in theaters and being really impressed by, like, they took innovative approaches to filmmaking where they didn't have to. They just went above and beyond to, like, almost show off. It was. I'm thinking specifically of, like, they were kind of doing Tenet before Tenet did Tenet. They would reverse through a whole scene, follow a character, and then until it got to a different character, and then go back in forward motion and follow that character through a different part of the scene, a different part of the location. And then there was this really cool, like, it follows Shannon Sossman and James Vanderbeek in a split screen that ends up meeting perfectly in a hallway and coming together, follow them through their morning until they meet in the hallway. And when I saw that you worked on that, my first thought was to ask how was something like that mapped out?
Well, that was motion control. That was computer generated movement with the camera to get them into the same place, because we had to shoot one at a time because it becomes the same frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, we would shoot one and the actor would be there one side would be there kind of waiting, take that last step in as we follow that person in. And then motion control, we do the same thing the other side. So it's exactly the same to get together, and then you can blend them pretty easily. It was, the most challenging part was the programming of the, rehearsing and then programming, because that, especially 2002, I guess you told me already, things have changed considerably. That would be a lot easier right now, but it was a bit of a time consuming, first rehearsal, and then setting the track and making sure it was all locked and marked, and then setting all the programming points with the visual effects guys to nail it down, and then doing the one side, making sure it was perfect, doing the other side, making sure it was perfect, and then morphing it together with the, which is now, plebeian equipment that you have on the set. Now you can edit the movie on the set, but back then, we had to bring a whole bunch of things, and we had to use a little bit of imagination and a little bit of hope to make it all jive perfectly. But yeah, that was an effort.
Awesome.
The scene in reverse when it especially like the party scene where it goes, you pretty much get everybody's introduction. Something like that has to be a nightmare for continuity, and there has to be so much care taken to. There's so many supporting actors in place, and you're like, in a lot of the times you can cheat things, but when you're exploring the whole space through different perspectives in the course of one scene. That just had to be insane to put together.
It was all about the continuity. It was making sure, we're shooting different sections of the party and then going back to different sections of the party. We shot it all forward and ran it reverse, but we're still going to different sections. Kate Bosworth at the pool table. Mm-hmm. You have to help me because I haven't seen some of these movies in a very long time. We had, Vanderbeek wandering around. We had Shannon Sossman in another part. We had the Ian up in the room upstairs. We're going to all of these different places, so we just had to rehearse with the background very carefully, so all of that would be the same. All of their movements would be the same every time. There was, you can get away with a lot with background, but when you're going back through, when you're coming through and then going back down to a different place than you were before, it's really important that all of the background specialists hit their marks. And we had a great bunch of it was a great bunch of background. And oddly enough, this was the end of the world party, if I remember correctly. It was the end of the world party. And we had shot that over the course of 3 days, and the third day was September 11th, 2001.
Oh, wow.
So we, fortunately, it had gone so well the first 2 days that, when we showed up on September 11th, 2001 here in Los Angeles, some people didn't come that day. Some people didn't show up for work that day. And it was, really important to me and Jeremiah Samuels, the line producer, and Roger, to a lesser extent, because it's his baby, and the baby comes first. Even when the world has changed dramatically overnight, we wanted to get everybody back home with their families, and fortunately, those rehearsals and the backgrounds were so good that we were ahead from the first 2 days, that we were able to finish up the party, make it good, miss some of the missing people, dress other people up similar. We had to fudge some stuff and get people back to their families as quickly. We think we shot for like 9 hours that day, which, in movie terms is like a half day.
Yeah.
So, that was a really I'll always think, I'll always put the two together because my daughter was, that was her due day too. That was also the day she was supposed to be born.
Wow.
It is tragically poetic that you're shooting the end of the world party on during the time that happens.
It was all. I'm about to bust out right now.
And even with those background actors, I think he'll know where I'm coming from with this. There are no small parts. No small parts.
Yeah.
Everybody's parts is important. Now, let me ask you this: in 2002 and 2003, for 8 months, you worked on Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Those were shot at the same time, right?
Yeah,
Gotcha,
continues.
gotcha.
We shot it as if it was one movie. We went into it thinking it was one movie.
What was it like putting that together? Like, because the scale of that was so huge. It's essentially a 4-hour film with a huge cast, and I read that I saw in an interview both you and Quentin Tarantino described it as a difficult shoot. So I was wondering, was it obvious that this was another level when you were working on it?
Well, yeah, first, the first tip off was, just the cast, obviously. And then it was the first time we were working with Bob Richardson, who I think was Oscar Richardson only the second at the time. He had only won 2 Oscars maybe at that time. So, Andre Sekula was great, and Guillermo Navarro went on to win his own Oscar anyway. He was great too, but now we got Bob Diablo Blanco Richardson. The people who have worked with him, I hope affectionately, because I say it affectionately, because Bob is one of my favorite people on the planet. But the White Devil, and that was going to raise the bar right there, because we are now dealing with an uncompromising cameraman, an uncompromising director, and we're in 4 countries with many different languages, many different stars from many different cultures, and it was a challenge, and it was exciting. It was exciting, and it was a marathon too, because we shot it for 154 days.
Yeah, that's wild.
What was the most challenging part, would you say?
Just getting our feet on the ground, really, I would say was the most challenging thing. Just figuring out how we were going to do it. I noticed you guys like the story, so I'll share another one with you. When I was from the early days of Kill Bill, I put together, I normally put together my first schedule. I'll just put together as I think, what would be great, as it should be. I don't worry about how many days it is. I just put it together as it should be. And I put one together for Kill Bill. I think I had it at 125 days, if I remember correctly, 125, 130 days. And I brought it to the line producer and the producer, and I was nearly fired right there. What are you kidding? No, go back, make it. Did you show this to Quentin? I'm like, no. This is what I think. This is just my, I just wanted to run it past you guys. And no. Go back, make it 98 days. Go back and make a 98-day schedule. I'm like, okay. So I went back, I squeezed it into the 98 days, did this, did that, the other thing. And I brought it back, and they're like, okay, now you can show Quentin. I'm like, okay. So I walk across the office, and when I first showed up on my office, because Quentin writes the title pages. Mm-hmm. And so there was the big in red in Kill Bill, and on my door was Kill Bill Clark. It was on the script page sign. I'm like, oh God, this is. And they tried as hard as they could. And so I walk across the office, I bring it to Quentin, and I bring the 98-day schedule to Quentin, and he takes the schedule, and okay. Oh, I like starting out with the Japanese boss. I like that. That was the first thing with Lucy Lou. She cuts off the guy's head, Boss Tanaka. I like that. I like starting with that. That's a good idea. That's 2 days. Good for that. Then we go right into the House of Blue Leaves. All right. Yeah, the first week looks great. Yeah, first week looks great. Love it. Okay, well, that's the first 5 days. What about the other 92? Any thoughts on those? No, I've never really done a movie like this. I don't really have any thoughts. But the first week is great. I love the first week.
Okay, okay.
All right, good. I like the
We're
first
compartmentalizing here.
Yeah.
And so, really, the toughest part, especially for a guy like me who's has to be, is in charge of the schedule. I'm not sleeping at night because we had to, once we get into the House of Blue Leaves, figure out how we're going to achieve it. And, on normal movies, you try to, in most movies, you try to say, okay, we're going to have a shot that goes this way. So we'll continue shooting this way. We'll turn around and then we'll go this way. We very quickly, within the first day or two, realized that was just going to confuse and frustrate, Quentin more than anybody, but really everybody. How can you do this fight? We shooting directly, so we had to. He wanted Hong Kong style anyway, and so Bob adjusted. We just went into straight Hong Kong style, top light. Keep it on the bottom, keep the bounce on the floor, and we just kept moving. We would turn around we would turn around 10 times in a day if we had to, whatever it was. And we were getting 30, 35 shots a day on that movie. But if you look at the amount of shots in that fight,
Yeah.
a lot of shots in that fight.
Yeah.
And so that fight took a lot of chunk of China. And that was really just understanding that this was going to have to be our process, and me being able to keep my job was were the most challenging parts of that process. But Quentin supported me from immediately. I was getting heat, and Quentin just kind of sat down with me. He's like, "Look, I know you're getting shit on all the time. I know people are blaming you for this. I think you're doing a great job. And you answer to me, and I answer to Harvey Weinstein, and that's it. So you keep doing your job with these people, but I've got your back." And that helped me sleep at night. It didn't make it any easier, but I was able to get a little bit more rest at night. But it was hard.
Well, I think a perfect segue is to that because he had your back. But at this point, you and Quentin took a break. It wasn't you. It wasn't him. It was just circumstantial. Now, you guys would work together again, and since, like you mentioned earlier, with Inglourious Basterds in 2009. Now, you mentioned in an interview that this made your relationship stronger, comparing the bond to peas and carrots. Tell us about that a little bit. It had to feel really affirming to return and have a sense of respect, knowing that you've worked with him before, years have went by, and now you guys are at it again, and it's a mutual respect between you guys.
It was really kind of a very exciting thing for me, in particular. It was about 5 years, if memory serves, and he's now at the peak of a continued peak of fame and notoriety. So he was also acting in quite a bit of different things, Adam Sandler and all this stuff. So he was working with a lot of different people in my position from different capacities. And then he also went down, he wanted to try new things. He was thinking of going down to Austin and teaming up with Robert Rodriguez, because they're soulmates. The love of film that those two people have is second to none, and the respect that they have for each other and the knowledge that each of them have is, mind blowing. And so he wanted to go down there, and he used most of his crew down there, and I was over in Thailand with Sly doing Rambo, which is a whole nother yeehaw fun, because Sly is wild. I love the man. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met, and we had a great time doing that. But I knew what Quentin was doing, and I was concerned that that might be the end of that. And then I was reaffirmed that would be the end when Inglourious Basterds just boom, all of a sudden there was Inglourious Basterds. It was happening, and I wasn't a part of it. It got up and running very quickly in Berlin, and the line producer, a gentleman named Lloyd Phillips, had just done the Intercontinental, the Clive Owen movie, also in Berlin, and he had done it with somebody whom he had collaborated quite a bit with, great AD, Bruce Moriarty. and Lloyd, and Lawrence, who I was always in trouble with Lawrence because, from Kill Bill days, and Lawrence, I would always give Lawrence my opinion, and that wasn't always sometimes what people want to hear. Sometimes they want to be lied to. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm going to tell you what I think is good, bad, and where we have a problem and where we don't. And that didn't always. That wasn't. It all changed on Inglourious Bastards, but earlier on, it was a bit of a challenge. And on Kill Bill, like I told, my job was on the line every day, and that's where it was coming from. It was coming from their job, or Bennett Walsh and Lawrence Bender. Their job is on the line for Miramax because we're going over. So it all rolls. And I'm the guy there, at the bottom of the hill, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They convinced Quentin, who was just surprised that this whole thing had gotten going and up and running so fast, and he's in Berlin, and he hadn't seen me in 5 years, and I guess he was. I don't know if he was thinking about me or not at that time, but they started shooting. They shot their first week, and from what I've heard from Quentin and from other people is that he wasn't happy. He just was not. He wasn't convinced that this was going to be the great film that he had in his mind. He wasn't having a good time, and he was struggling. Bruce Moriarty's mother was ill, and so Bruce and Quentin, Quentin was like, I really want to call this other guy, and Bruce was like, I really want to go home to my mom, take care of my mother because she's I don't know if she's going to be there when I get back. So those two factors really worked well for each of the players. And I just got a call here, and I was actually very upset. I was very sad because I had seen my old second AD, Pilar Savone, had become Quentin's assistant on Kill Bill. I talked him into taking her as an assistant because he didn't want an assistant. I'm like, look, I can't make sure that your underwear is clean, man. You need an assistant. And Pilar wants to be your assistant. She had been my second AD for many years. She wanted to move into other things. Didn't want to be an AD. And so I asked him to take her as an assistant, and they worked very well together. And she was now the associate producer on Inglourious Bastards. And when on the Facebook page, she had posted a couple of pictures about, we started shooting, and there's Bob on the camera. And I was just like, oh, and so I remember falling asleep that night. And then the next morning getting a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was Pilar. And I'm like, hello, Pilar, what's going on? Why are you calling me? She's like, Quentin needs you. He would like you to come to Berlin. Would you come to Berlin? I'm like, yeah, I'll come. Now, really what's interesting about this, like the car accidents, like, Kismet, all of these lucky things, I had mentioned my daughter born in 2001. This is now 2008 into 2009, and her mother and I had split up, and we were in a bit of a custody situation. Whereas if he had asked me to come in August, I would have had to have said no, because I would have wanted to stay in Los Angeles until we had a signed custody agreement from the judge. I was not leaving town and giving up my daughter until that was, gold, until it was set in stone. And that Friday, I got the signed agreement from the judge in the mail, the certified letter that the custody was set. I was remaining apart. We were sharing 50-50 custody. Everything was going to be fine. No problem. And it was that Saturday that Pilar called me at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Serendipitous.
Yeah.
Wow.
I kind of laugh thinking about you on like Facebook the night before, and you're drowning in tears, and the next morning you get the call, and you're like, yeah, I guess I guess I could be there.
I'm on the next thing smoking. I'm there.
I actually remember exactly what I said. I answered the phone as I recognized, more digits than normal on the telephone, and And she goes, "Hey, Bill, what are you doing?" And it's 6 o'clock in the morning in LA. I'm like, "I'm standing in my living room naked because I just got out of bed. What are you doing, Pilar?" And she goes, "Oh, Bill."
I just want to say, I think that, of course, you made everything worked out for you, but I'm a father. He's a father as well. We both have daughters. And as much as we love film, it's nothing more than we love being fathers. So you make that decision every day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Yeah. It was never, I mean, as I said, had he called in August when they started prepping, I would have had to have turned him down, as painful as that would have been. But, you know, I don't know how, I don't know why he didn't call, thank goodness. And he started using Bruce. And when then when I arrived in Berlin, he explained to me that he was very upset with himself because he felt very relieved and happy when he heard I Can Come. And he was upset that I would have any kind of power over him from that perspective, which I thought was kind of, I'm like, I don't get it either, dude. You know, I don't completely understand either, but I'm grateful for it. And then he was very kind and explained to me that how he had worked with so many different people over the past 5 years, and you know, as an actor, as a director, you know, in commercials and movies and TV shows and Alias and you know, and Death Proof, and you know, and all of these different people that he had worked with in my position. And he's like, and what I've learned since we've last seen each other is that the AD, there are very good ADs out there, and they are great crew chiefs. They really know how to run a crew and run a set in a great way. But you are the only assistant director that I have ever met. Whoa.
Okay.
Well, that's nice. Thank you for that. I'll take that.
I feel bad for whoever the AD was in that downtime. So how many times that person had to hear like, "Yo, Bill Clark got us a 16-hour day done in 12 hours back on Pulp Fiction. What the hell are you doing?"
I don't. I think all of it was internalized and maybe not even realized until he was you know, knee deep in Berlin.
But would it be fair to say sometimes he didn't, if you guys hadn't, like we talked about, that split for a few years, sometimes you got to experience other things before you really know what you're going to appreciate in someone. And I think that's what happened between you guys.
I believe that. I mean, I had already appreciated him greatly anyway, but I had a bigger appreciation for him when I was back there. And he explained to me too that there was a, because now there's an unspoken trust. There is no chance in any way that this guy is trying to f me over. He's not trying to protect himself. He's not here for any other reason than to help me make this movie. And I believe it, I feel it, and I'm moving forward with it. And that's just the way it is. I think that's the way he saw it from now until today, and hopefully until we both are done making movies.
That's awesome. I want to take a quick sidebar because when I was looking at your IMDb, I saw that you worked on Big Mama's House. Not Big Mama. Yeah, Big Mama's House, Like Father, Like Son. We did Tropic Thunder. Okay. we did Tropic Thunder on the last episode. We covered Tropic Thunder, and we were talking to Brandon T. Jackson, who, just to put it subtly, is an interesting case now. Just go on his Instagram. You can see for yourself. But we were talking to him about coming on to the show, and it fell through for personal reasons. His wife got COVID, and he was dealing with that, so we didn't get a chance to talk to him. But I did a lot of research on him in preparation for the interview, and one of the things that I read was shooting Big Mama's House, Like Father, Like Son. He actually considered himself cursed by God for cross-dressing, and it's largely credited to his falling out with Hollywood. And I was wondering, as the AD on that production, was that discontentment in that role ever apparent at all?
No, not at all, as far as I'm concerned. And I actually hung out with him outside of work on a few occasions, and really enjoyed his company. He's a very talented young man. And you know, it's hard, putting on that fat suit and running around and that stuff is hard. And especially, Martin Lawrence had done it a couple of times. So all of our energy was to make sure we get Martin into the fat suit and out of the fat suit as soon as we can. Martin. Okay, done. Okay, great. Go ahead, get comfortable. Cool rooms, all this stuff we had for both of them also. But Brendan did have to take a back seat to Martin Lawrence and Martin Lawrence's needs, because Martin Lawrence was a big star and incredible talent. I mean, he's another one of those guys, you're just talking to, and he's just a dude, and he's got, like many actors, certain insecurities. He wants to make sure he's prepared. His insecurities are all based on professionalism. He wants to make sure he has the right sides the night before. So he comes in prepared with the lines and inflection on everything that he's going to do. So you're not going to change the dialogue on him that morning. He will, it rattles. So, and he's prepared, he spends the night before preparing for all of the dialogue. And he's always great. And once that camera rolls, you serious talking about this, the camera rolls, and there he goes, and he's right into it. It's always a remarkable thing to see somebody just turn it on like that. It's one of the more amazing things for me in watching actors over the years now, when you see those people who can do it. A lot of people are method, nothing wrong with that, but try to stay in the character throughout the day. So I get the biggest kick out of the people who are, Joe, and then Bob the character, in a flash. I'm amazed by that. I always love watching it. And so it was a workout for him, because it was not comfortable. But I mean, he did a really good job, and always did everything we asked, and we I would still consider him a friend, although I haven't seen him in a long time, because this business is bad for friendships. It's hard on friendships,
Yeah.
So you develop very tight bonds with people, and then you don't see people for 10 years. It's a strange thing.
All right, I have one more quick sidebar before we get back to Quentin Tarantino films. You worked on The Goods in 2009, and we just have to say that movie doesn't get nearly as much credit for the hilarious movie that it is. And there's no question here. I just wanted to say great job, because that movie is fantastic.
Well, just look at the people involved. I mean, you got Gary Sanchez, all those guys are incredible and hysterical people. Neil Brennan, the director, is just a funny person in general. Did all the Dave Chappelle stuff, and then you look at the cast.
Yeah.
We had Ken Jeong before anybody knew who Ken Jeong was. And we had all the Office guys. And they were all hysterical, and Will Ferrell. I mean, it was and of course Jeremy carrying the thing.
What I appreciated about it is that there's not one moment that goes unutilized in the movie. Everything is used. Like, this is a comedy, we're gonna make you laugh every chance that we get. There's never a moment wasted.
There was nothing that was not supposed to be funny. Everything was always looking or working towards the next joke, and sometimes just the next joke showing up. And that's Neil. That's what Neil does. That's Neil's bag. And interesting thing about that, though, we shot that during the writer's strike in 2008, and 2009, I guess.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of days that it was very difficult to make that funny when you have a bunch of angry writers outside of the dealership yelling and screaming, and writers inside of the dealership, who are producing the movie but can't write anything, to respect the union. Yeah. So there was some challenges with that. A batu, we called it. Yeah.
All right, let's get down to the brass tacks here. We're going to talk about Xango Unchained. This was shot in 2012 across California, Louisiana, with a sprinkle of Wyoming. Could you please tell us about this masterpiece and this production, sir?
Well, it was, what a joy. and a challenge. It was also a challenge, not only because of the multiple locations that you've mentioned, but the content. It's never easy asking 150 people to go out into the field and pick cotton. With a bunch of other fellows riding horses around with shotguns. Recreating that type of that emotion and feeling. First off, recreating the cotton was interesting. It was challenging to do. It was actually soybeans, so the art department put all that cotton on all of those soybeans.
Okay.
And because you just can't grow cotton that fast. It takes some time, and there's not a lot of cotton fields in the South anymore. Mm-hmm. So, but our production designer Michael Riva did a lot of research. Wonderful man, Michael Riva, and he came up with the idea of placing the cotton on soybean, because the soy plant looks very similar to the cotton plant. So we did that, and it was always something. There was challenge after challenge after challenge on that movie. We still managed to have an amazing time, but right from the get-go, we had challenges, right in training, because there was a lot of training, to ride these horses like you live on them was hard, and Christoph Waltz had been studying dressage, and in his first day of training, got bucked, off a horse.
Yeah.
And I saw it.
I had a question about that, actually. Did Jamie Foxx really give him a saddle with a seatbelt as like a feel better gift?
I had not heard that. I don't know. I don't know
so
if
you
that's...
can't confirm nor deny. Okay.
I can't confirm nor deny. Yeah, I can't confirm
fair.
Nor deny. It doesn't seem like a Jamie. Jamie's more respectful than to make that kind of painful joke. Because maybe at the end, maybe afterwards when it was all said and done, but and certainly not before recovery or while we were shooting, because Christoph had to work very hard and be very patient to heal in enough time to even get back on the horse. But that a blessing in disguise is that incident is where the dentist wagon came from. There was no wagon in the original piece. It was the day after Christoph's injury, and Quentin and I were sitting in his office, and we're he's not going to be the best. I believe it was we were trying to start shooting in December. I can't recall the specifics. This may have been September, October. And for a lot of the riding that needed to be done, both he and Jamie needed, not a couple of days on a horse, they needed months on a horse, to feel that natural. And, and Christoph all of a sudden wasn't going to be able to even get on a horse, until it turned out to be until after the new year, but we didn't know exactly yet. And so I just was like, this may be stupid. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. What if, he had a wagon? What if, like those snake oil guys driving around all the time? And Quentin goes, let me think about that. And I'm just like, oh, that was a dumb idea. I can't believe I even said that. This hero riding around in a wagon. Oh God. Oh well, I said it. What can you do? And then so the next day, Quentin comes in with a quintaglyphic sketch. He's not Picasso, or maybe he is a little Picasso. He's not he's not Monet. It's not realistic. It's more surreal, his images. But he comes in with the surreal image of a dentist wagon with the big tooth on top. And we call over Michael and Michael Riva, and he's like, what if we did this? he's a traveling dentist, so he has a chair in the back of the, and then we can put the dynamite in the tooth. What do you guys think? What do you think? And I'm like, that's hysterical, just thinking about that tooth, and there it is. Now that's the first image of the movie. That was not the plan, but sometimes, as often happens in filmmaking, and one of my favorite parts of the whole process is necessity creates invention. And what you invent out of that necessity is often better than what you had originally fantasized about. So this is one of those examples. And there's several throughout my career where you've had to decide, you can't afford it. You don't have time for it. You don't have whatever it is. You don't have, whatever it is. And you have to figure out a solution. And even though you don't have all the pieces, so you take the pieces that you do have and you make something different. And sometimes it's better. Not always, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice, but often it's better. And that's really when it's a really exciting process for me.
Just hearing that story, I just thinking about this. The Christopher Reeves, that had to be so scary seeing him bucked off a horse like.
Christoph. Oh
No.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Superman. Damn it. Yeah. It had to be so scary seeing that. So I'm just happy that he was okay. I never even known that the production was halted to do that. But thankfully, you and your quick thinking. But let me ask you this: there's a scene I want to ask about with the horses since you brought it up. The scene at the end with Jamie Foxx and he's making the horse dance. Did he really do that, or because you said he had months to train, or was that someone else where he's prancing on the horse? It's like a little.
He apparently came with his own horse, right? Like he was.
That was his own horse.
Oh, well, then there you go. Then
he was well versed in horse.
Okay.
And now our guys, Rusty Hendrickson and Jeff Dashnaw, they taught him how to do that, and they took the horse. Really, Jamie, wanted to use his horse. He was a little familiar with his horse, but the horse wasn't movie trained. So Jamie allowed Rusty to take the horse, Rusty Henderson to take the horse, and so he and Rusty's amazing guys started working with the horse, and Jamie a little bit with a different horse, and then they brought the two back together. And a lot of it was Jamie's own horse, and I believe that was Jamie's own horse. And I saw it live. It really happened.
Horse movie training. Mr. Ed will never work in this town again. Goodness gracious.
The final shootout of Django Unchained wasn't in the script. That was something where you guys, like you said, there was a problem, and out of that came creativity. Like the problem was, we have now done so much in the movie. We need something that tops that for the climax. So and this isn't just like something. Let's just shoot that. They're talking about explosions, multiple extras.
Valentine's Day Massacre almost very, yeah.
So I'm interested what goes through that internally for someone like you who's tasked with, okay, this is what we want to do, let's put it together. What happens in your mind before you even begin to plan when something like that comes up?
Weeping. Weeping, concerned about your job, end of career. What really caused it was the barn sequence. The barn sequence was so dramatic, and even shooting it was such a drain, even just to shoot the thing. And it was such a poignant and powerful thing that Quentin, was obviously the first to realize that what he had planned for the climax, the end of the movie, all of a sudden wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. Because, now everything is coming down from the barn, as opposed to, taking a little dip with the Australians and then crescendoing again.
Yeah.
So, because really it was just a little speech on the front porch of the thing as they return from the funeral. He gives them each a gun and asks them to draw, and they can't draw, and he shoots them dead out there. And my biggest concern was the big night light exterior and creating fog and all of this stuff. It was Bob's concerns were my biggest concerns about that scene. And And it was one morning at breakfast, just after a day or two after we had finished shooting the barn. And I can always tell, you can tell when something is on Quentin. He's a very expressive person. Although he keeps his cards close to his vest, his face often gives away what's on his mind. And I saw just the way he was eating breakfast, or not eating breakfast, that the breakfast was sitting in front of him and he wasn't eating, that I'm like, okay, something's going on. And I just, hey, dude, what's up? How's it going? I need to talk to you. And he explained that the end of the movie wasn't big enough. He had to change the ending. He thinks he told me the idea of putting on Calvin Candy's suit. That was new. So I'm just processing all of these things he's telling, because now I got to get Jamie into a fitting right away so they can reproduce that suit so it fits him like it fits Leonardo DiCaprio, because they're not the same people. They're both incredibly handsome and thin and in great shape, but they're not the same. So, I got to go through that whole process. And I know that suit was the piece de resistance for Sharon Davis, our costume designer. So I'm thinking about that. And then, and it's got to be a shootout. And all right. And so all the overseers that we had outside have to come back. All right, some of them aren't even here anymore. I got to start figuring out how to get these guys back, And so I started working with Jimmy Scotch, Paul, our line producer, and Pilar and Stacy and Reggie and Reggie Hudlin to get, all of these things that we're talking about, which he is now going to go back. We shot what we were shooting that day, and then over the weekend he would rewrite that sequence, and so we would learn. We were a couple of weeks away from it. Yeah, it wasn't like tomorrow, which had happened before. On Kill Bill, that happened in Bud's trailer. It was a complete change, dramatic one day. But this, we had a couple of weeks to get our together. But even as we were doing it, it wasn't enough. We brought the overseers who we had back, and then he's like, yeah, and get me 10 others. And so we brought 10 more overseers. But then all of a sudden, we're shooting it. He's like, I need more. So I start dressing up the PAs. I'm an overseer. I'm one of I put on the cowboy suits. I'm the first guy down those steps, that's come down with the gun, just because, I'm just throwing people in, and I'm like, just do what I do. We're trying to get it done. Just follow me. Just do what I do. And when I put the gun down, you put the gun down. When I put the gun up, you put the gun up. And when I walk forward, you walk forward. And like, okay, because everybody's nervous. They're not trying to be.
I didn't sign up for this.
This is some extra, like, what the?
We shot my key PA, Miguel. We shot him 2-3 times. We're just shooting people. We're just picking people to shoot. Just anybody we can to run in the building, and then redoing as many of the stunt guys as we can, Chinese style, because we learned it on Kill Bill. We killed all those crazy 88 5 times over. I think the one we killed the most was Elvis. We killed him 5 times. Was the fight, one of the fight team he called Elvis. His name was Elvis, and we shaved his head. He had, so for the first half of the scene he has hair like Elvis, and by the end of the scene his head is shaved because he's somebody else, because we had to kill him again. And that's
Crazy 42.
Yeah.
44, Crazy 44.
And so we took that model to the final shootout of, when he's shooting everybody before he gets trapped like a rat in the hallway, where we just keep bringing people in, bring as many people in. And then we needed more people again for when he comes out with his hands up. And that's where I was leading the posse down the steps with a nice big hat, which I always love. Nothing makes my job easier than being on both sides.
That is amazing. One of the most talked about scenes that people, they like it, but they don't really go into to know what really happened, is the dinner scene at the table when, of course, Samuel L. Jackson character Steven figures out that he want that girl. They ain't here for nobody. They want that girl. During that scene, Leonardo DiCaprio, he becomes so upset. And, from what we've interviewed and read, he slammed his hand on that table so many times that the cup eventually moved to under his hand. And one night during production, he actually cut himself. Were you there? And could you tell us about that? Was there, and him staying in character was the biggest thing that we were impressed by. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I was there. I was about 5 feet from him, and saw exactly what he did. What had happened. It was just a little cordial glass. One of those little small glasses that you put your port or your sherry in, and they were all there, and he goes through the speech, and you will, and he bangs and he puts his hand right on the glass, and I'm like, because I saw it. I saw the hand go right down on the glass, and I saw the glass break, and I'm like, oh, Jiminy crickets. And he kept his hand down there, and he just kept acting, and then he brought it up, and there he is bleeding, and cut, and then he goes, I think I cut my hand. Yeah. Like medic, Erica, medic. And yeah, he did, and he continued right through. I mean, I knew from the first time I had worked with Leo was on Xango Unchained, and the first shot that we did with him was the introduction of his character. We're on the back of his head as the Mandingos are fighting by the fireplace, and the French. And it's a 70-270 zoom, big ass zoom, which only Bob can really do effectively and perfectly, and just about every time. I mean, I don't even want to get into how amazing Bob Richardson is as not only a cinematographer, but as an operator. He's the best operator I've ever seen. There's he's unbelievable. It's really mind blowing. And so we're doing that big snap zoom in, and Leo comes walking over to Bob, and they had known each other from Avatar and all, and all the things, Scorsese and all that stuff. And he goes, hey Bob, what are you zooming to and from here? And I want to say, I don't know, I'd be making it up, but it was a long, it was quite a big snap, big wide whole room into not quite a Sergio Leone, almost a Sergio Leone, but to here. And Leo just kind of shook his head. Okay, all right. And he's got that long cigarette holder and all that jazz. And the first take, well, come on in. We got a good bit of fun going on here. And boom, snap in. And he held the cigarette. You can see, if you look again, the end of the cigarette holder is a little bit uncomfortably close to his face, because somehow he just knew where the end of the frame would be for the end of the cigarette, and he wanted to keep the shot's ruined if the cigarette holder doesn't make the frame, and he knows it, and he puts it in exactly the right purpose on take one. It was, and I'm like, okay, check the gate. I made a joke. I remember specifically, check the gate. We're moving on from that one because it was perfect. The first take of the first shot with Leonardo DiCaprio was perfect, and not by accident. It wasn't a fluke. He knew what he was doing. Bob knew what he was doing. Quentin designed the shot, and it was magic. And that's just the way Leo is. I mean, Leo is really certainly the most prepared actor. Really, really digs deep and takes deep bite. That's why he struggled with the Calvin Candy character, because he was such a bad man.
I was going to ask you about that because that's a perfect segue. Of course, DiCaprio was uneasy about the gratuitous racism in his character displays until it's written that Samuel Jackson pulled him aside. And basically, Quentin Tarantino said that Calvin J. Candy is the only character he has ever created who he truly despises. I mean, like truly, truly despises. What was the atmosphere like on set? You mentioned earlier having the people there, everyone dress up and this, that, and everyone recreating cotton and all this thing. What was it ever tense? And you as an AD, did you ever? I'm sorry, as an assistant director, you're not an AD. Tarantino told you that. What were you tasked with? Were you able to keep everyone positive? Were there days where it was harder than others? What was it like?
Yeah, there certainly were days that were hard. I remember the one day where they first arrive at Don Johnson's house. That drive through the field was a very uncomfortable day, because we were not, the weather wasn't cooperating. We're in a field with all of these background specialists, dressed as slaves, behaving as slaves, and that's just and the overseers behaving like overseers, and that's just hard to watch. It's hard to watch in the movie, but when you're standing there on the ground and you're at and I got to ask honey, we can you move to the next cotton bush over, please, and pick that cotton? It's
right.
So we went to great lengths to. I know I specifically did. I know the production specifically did. To constantly try to remind everybody who was there how grateful we were for them being there. That and the Greenville scene was also very painful to shoot. The people with to see that stuff, and none of it was fake.
Right.
It's not like we're making this shit up. This is real stuff that Riva and his team had researched, and we had to put real people into those circumstances, and it was not comfortable and it was not fun. And fortunately, all these people, this was in New Orleans at that time, were really, really happy to be there, seemed to understand what we were trying to recreate, and were appreciative to a certain extent for themselves to actually be here. Their parents and their parents and their parents lived this, and I am here because of it. I am a powerful person, and I would do my best to remind them, and then of course invite them to the party.
Yeah, you got to come to the party.
And then so because we're still every Friday night, it's still an important job. Where are we going? In New Orleans, it's not as challenging as it was.
Oh yeah.
But it still was an important part.
And just to piggyback off what you just said here is the challenges. I think you guys also had another challenge, because me and him talked about this last night, which was I've never once in my life laughed at anything racism related, but for some reason you guys got a chuckle out of me when Jonah Hill came out of that mask, and then everyone's there arguing about, well, your wife made him, she's not going to do this anymore. The one guy, I'm like, wait a minute, this is the nicest mob I've ever seen in my life. It was funny. I chuckled. I was like, okay, they got me. That was excellent. So great job to you guys on that.
Yeah, that was all Quentin. Obviously that's Quentin's writing. Quentin's in the scene. He's one of the guys. He never takes the bag off his head, but he's on the horse, and what if we go next time we go full regalia. That.
It's satire. He's making fun of them.
It's really that's what makes that scene work. Obviously, it's very well written. Quentin can write comedy just as well as he can write drama. The guy has a gift, right. And the fact that we're making fun of these ass backwards people,
right,
gives it a little light. It gives it a little light, and I'm really excited that it made the movie. The first version that I had saw, it didn't make it. It wasn't in that cut. And Quentin had showed me and Bob. He invited me over to the edit. Me and Bob over to the editing room together. And Bob and I sat in office chairs and watched it on a big TV. And we both missed it. And he's like, "Yeah, you noticed? Yeah, of course we noticed. We noticed everything that's not in the movie. And but this we really missed. And I remember standing out in the driveway and just kind of throwing ideas and before this and that, and then next time I saw it, Quentin had the brilliant idea of the flashback and all of that. And it was in a perfect spot in the film to give.
Right. Yeah. Some tension relief. Yes.
What's your favorite memory from that production?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's so many good memories and so many challenging memories. But, there's one thing that I kind of love. It's kind of a personal story. It doesn't really reflect. It reflects in the film only in the sense that the montage with all of the way you set the table and how specific that was. Now we had I had brought a PA, oddly enough, who I had worked with on the Big Mama's House movie, Freddie Turner, who's now a photographer and an AD, a great AD in his own right. But when we were shooting in December in Lone Pine, the opening scene, with the I'm looking for Xango. You're the one I'm looking for. Yeah. We were getting towards the end. That was very challenging to shoot. It was cold, and on top of it, we're misting, it's below 32 degrees. And because we want the breath, we had built misters in the forest, hidden in the trees. So water would be constantly to create the moisture.
Mhm.
So there would be more breath to see in the coldness. So it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's because, the shot through the icicles.
Yes.
That wasn't on our agenda. The misters created that ice, and Bob and I walked over and we're like, look at this. This is f***ing wild. And we brought Quentin over, and Quentin was like, yeah, we got to shoot this. But that was only created because of the misters we had put in the trees. The water had come together and started to drip off the leaves and would freeze. And so it was a really challenging thing out there in Lone Pine. It was uncomfortable, all the, Jamie's out there and the rest of the guys, Sammy and all the other, the other guys that we had behaving as slaves in that chain gang were, topless. They were uncomfortable. They didn't just act uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable. And my main man, Freddie, had run to make a sandwich for one of the guys and inadvertently had ruined one of the shots. Just somebody had walked into the shot, and that shot, and Quentin was very upset because we're it's like 4:00 in the morning. We're almost done. We're just trying, we don't want to come, we're not coming back another day. It was a stressful moment in time. And Quentin was like, I don't care a shit who it is. I want him fired. I want whomever, I don't give a shit. We got to get out of here. He was very upset. And I went and talked to, I put on a bit of a show largely for Quentin to, feign how upset I was. I was upset, but I know who Freddie is. I'm not, and I don't want to fire him. I'm going to find a way to not fire him. And Freddie had a bit of, he was really worried. He was very upset. He had a very difficult night that night. And the next day we come in and I'm like, Freddie, you stay at base camp today. And Quentin asked me, did you find out who that was? I'm like, yeah. Did you fire him? I said, no, I didn't fire him. Why not? I'm like, well, Quentin, I just really don't think it's the right thing. I don't, he had a moment. It was a mistake. And granted, he made a mistake, but he's here for all of the right reasons. And he's the sweetest guy on the planet. He's the size of a mountain, but he's, but his heart is as soft as a teddy bear. It's just, I just think it's the wrong decision. And I did not do what you asked. And I apologize. And he's like, okay. He begrudgingly agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, months later, we're shooting we're about to get ready for the setting of the table, which was a very important piece that, the musical interlude, again, a breath, but also the meticulousness with which the people who worked in the house had to adhere by was an important message for the stupidity of the whole situation. This is all dumb. Everything about this is dumb. Not only are the Mandingo fighting dumb, not only are the guy, the guys, getting a beer for winning the fight and not dying is dumb. The people having to set the table for these idiots, these Candy family idiots, in such a meticulous way is also dumb. But we had taken, we kind of handpicked those people who would be working inside of the house for that sequence. One of them, Belinda Wino, came back. She was an extra on Django Unchained, and Quentin appreciated her work so much on that he brought her back. She was holding the jelly beans in the Hateful Eight. And I had charged Freddie with finding the right person, getting we hired a specialist, to teach these 4 or 5 specific people. And I charged Freddie with making sure that they trained and studied how to do this like they had done it every day for their whole lives since they were small children. And Quentin was kind of nervous about it because, it's just a weird thing. It's a weird way to set a table in general, and that it's so specific and so precise. And also, plus then you add the element of the camera to just move that precise so it looks a little bit even more precise. It was, and these are extras ultimately, these are background specialists who again have to step up and, under hot lights with, Quentin Tarantino staring at them with, with his big Cherokee eyes, and I charged Freddie with making sure that these people would be ready. And Quentin was so pleased with their work that he brought Freddie, at the end of the scene, he was great. And he asked the crew to give Freddie a big round of applause for the work he had done with these people in order to prepare that. And for me, it was a bit of a vindication for disregarding something that he had asked me to do. And for Freddie, it was, he was now where he was on the verge of tears and fear in December. In March, he's king of the world. And that's one of my favorite memories, and especially because of the content. I took Freddie from Atlanta to Los Angeles to work on this movie because he was, these are his parents, this is his family. These are his genealogy that had to suffer and endure this. And he had done such a great job on Big Mama's House. I wanted to reward him with this opportunity, and he deserved it. And then to get the ovation from, most importantly Quentin, but certainly the whole crew, for him and the people that he had worked so hard to train over the week to be so perfect. And we did it very quickly. And it was exactly what Quentin had wanted. And Freddie was a success and became all of a sudden one of the MVPs of the picture. Was a very proud moment for me. And he continues to make me proud.
It's always nice when you take a risk, and especially like a risk that involves a selfless act like that of pretty much disregarding what the boss is saying to save somebody's job, and then it ends up paying off like that big time where it worked out.
I said, yeah, definitely. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, that's just kind of what comes to mind. There's tons of things that were really remarkable about the whole movie. There was so many great moments. Jamie Foxx is, God, I hate that guy. He can do anything. He can do anything at all. It's he's a musician. I'll never forget the time when 1,000 corpses. I got 1,000 corpses, 1,000 coffins. What's the name of the artist? It's escaped. Rick Ross was visiting the set. And he and Jamie go back to the trailer, and they come back written on a little, the back of sides. And he's like, hey, Quentin, will you listen to this? Me and Rick, we're just working on this, and we want to know what you think. And there it was. I got 1,000 black corpses for 1,000 black, and Rick Ross just recites it to Quentin. I'm lucky enough to be there, and he and Jamie had just scribbled it out together in the trailer 10 minutes before. It's like, geez, is there anything you can't do? Is there anything?
Oh my God, I got heart surgery tonight. We got to get out of here early, guys. Jamie Talented Fox. Okay, so in 2014 and 2015, you worked on the Hateful Eight. This was a 4-month shoot, and for a film with an extended version running at a time runtime of over 3.5 hours. What is your process when creating a schedule for a film? Because we've talked about this with us several times a day. Sometimes you need to get it down. Sometimes you make 109 pages. They only want to see the first 5. So let me ask you this: when you're getting this thing down, what's your process?
Well, that had to be very fluid, um, because you don't really know what you're going to get day to day. When we were shooting in Telluride, Colorado, a beautiful, beautiful place. If you ever have a chance to go, do. It's amazing. But we needed snow. And we're not going to make all the snow. There's no better snow. Nobody makes better snow than the big man upstairs. So that's the snow we really wanted. So I was preparing 3 call sheets a day. I would have a snow call sheet, I would have an overcast call sheet, and I would have a sun call sheet.
All right. Preparation.
So, because you can predict the weather, kind of, it's
Yeah.
mountains.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just makes a left turn, it's going to snow tomorrow. Oh my God, what a beautiful day. So if it was snowing, we're going to shoot, outside with the stagecoach and the stunt guys, getting the stagecoach through wherever we had to go through all of the different places that we had. And that location had to be prepared. If it's overcast, we're going to go inside the stagecoach and we'll do, make our fake snow as best as we can to enhance the overcast and create the snow. We'll cover the hangman, and we'll cover Sam, and we'll cover Jennifer inside of the thing. If it's sunny, we're going to block the sun and we're going to shoot inside of the haberdashery. So, to schedule that, you kind of just put it together, but you have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And you wake up, I would wake up at 4:00 in the morning, and the first thing I would do is go look at the sky. And, and then I'd drive to set, which was always a joy because it's, again, such a gorgeous place.
Mhm.
And it wasn't too far from where we were. And I would show up and say, we're going to go with plan B. We're going to go with plan A. Have you seen Bob? Make sure I'm making the and that would be what it was on a daily basis. It gets, call Sam because, we told Sam we'll notify him, because if we're inside the haberdashery, he's at this point, he's out at the barn. He's not in this scene, so he's not sure if he needs to come in, but we're going into the stagecoach. So call him up, get Sam, so it was like juggling 5 balls at one time, every day while we were in Telluride. And then when we get back to, then we built it on a stage, the interior of the haberdashery again, which none of the day stuff was on the stage, only at night. And in order to, that was even more uncomfortable because, we brought in the air conditioning guys, it's 100 degrees in Los Angeles in June, and we're air conditioning the set. I'm trying to get it to as close to 32 degrees as I can. I would come in the morning, it would be 40, and we're running the misters again to try to get that breath, to sell that we're in the blizzard, because we're making a blizzard. Again, it's the Hateful Eight. This is another story where there's really not any redeeming characters, that all the redeeming characters are killed off.
The whole movie.
Yeah, they're all killed off. They're all killed off. But the character that wins is the storm. So that had to be, felt. You had to feel that storm because the only thing that survives is the storm.
Yeah.
So we don't know completely. Maybe Walt and Sam. Maybe I don't think so. I don't know.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Your most recent collaboration with Quentin Tarantino was 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino films, and I remember sitting in the theater watching the ending. The audience was they were all over the place as far as how it made them feel, but it was just this collective energy in the theater like it was all building to this moment in the house with where everything takes place with all of a sudden the extreme violence comes out, and you're reminded that you're watching a Quentin Tarantino film, and to me that movie felt like a return to, like, as we get older, sometimes we find ourselves going back home, returning to our roots. And that felt like a returning to the roots for me as far as Quentin Tarantino goes. It kind of had the same feel as Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Reservoir Dogs, like his original trilogy. Do you know if there was like a conscious effort during the making of that movie to go back to that kind of style?
Quentin has actually said point blank that no, it wasn't a conscious effort. You know, that was not what his thinking was. It just kind of happened in the writing process. I mean, that's what the first time I had read the script up at his house, that's what I told him. He's like, well, what do you think? You know, it's one of the more intimidating things you can ever experience when you go up to Quentin Tarantino's house to read the script, because he's kind of just watching you read the script,
Wow.
and it's they're not like 60 pages of light material. It's 160 pages of dense, dripping, dramatic, powerful, funny, different things. And and he's really kind of cute about it. He's like, can't make a drink. You can't make a drink yet. He pours it in, he kind of goes away, and you see him walking around in the kitchen, kind of peeks out, and he's like, I'm reading. Go away. God damn it, go away. It's hard. I'm not that great of a reader. English wasn't my strong suit anyway. I'm not that good with it anyway. When you're staring at me, I get even worse. I feel like I'm at the SATs all over again. And I did not do well on the SATs. So it's always a fun part of it. But I had read it, and what I said to him, is he has made an incredible career out of stealing things from all the greatest filmmakers of all time throughout history, throughout the past 100 years of cinema, and putting it into a stew that he then makes Quentin stew. It's his own. It becomes his own. But there's no doubt that there's things that have been taken directly from other films and put all together into the Quentin of it all. But in reading this, what I saw was he had taken pieces from all of his different work and put it into his own stew. Mm-hmm. So it was a triple Quentin stew, which
refried Quentin.
Twice baked Quentin.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of putting it. It felt like a trip down memory lane, but none of it felt recycled. It felt like fresh takes on himself. That's a perfect way of putting it. And your daughter actually appeared in that movie, right?
Yeah, my daughter was. We're all very proud that she's a member of the Manson family. Yeah, she played a Happy Capistrano, one of the Manson girls up in the house watching television at the beginning, comes out and gives. I mean, I felt bad for Brad because I've seen that stink eye, and it's powerful. It's powerful. Yeah. Gave Brad a very nice stink eye, and then yelled and screamed at him, and and it was great. It was fun. She had a great time. She loved missing school. She's an actress in her own right. She went to performing arts high school and loves the whole process, and now is studying literature to get a better understanding of storytelling. And so it was a really fun time. It was fun to have her on the set. But I actually didn't really deal with her much on the set unless she needed money for something, to cause trouble over at Checkpoint Charlie. Everybody hangs out at Checkpoint Charlie where you leave your cell phone because no cell phones were allowed on set. Mm-hmm. But that was really a thrill. And that was all Quentin's idea too. I originally said, I don't think that's a very good idea. I'm more concerned about her graduating high school. I'm not sure if her taking 2 weeks off from school is going to help her performance because it wasn't that great last year. And Quentin's like, are you crazy? She wants to be an actress, right? And I'm like, yeah. Like, what better first gig is this? And I'm like, I know, but she's not going to be anything unless she graduates high school, for God's sakes. And I'm her father. I'm worried about that. And he's like, dude. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll invite her in. You ask her. And if she wants to do it, she has to do all the work. She has to get with the headmaster. She's got to work it all out. She's got to work it out. You have to ask her. She's got to work it out. And that's exactly what happened. Called her in. He sat her down, told her what he'd like her to do. I didn't tell her anything. She was over the moon, excited, and went back and, discussed it with the powers that be at school, Idlewild Arts in Idlewild there. And they were very hospitable to the whole idea. And, they gave her homework and she stayed on it. She did a good job. And I think she was really, really, really quite good in that first little role. And cool as a cucumber. I mean, I was more nervous than she was.
That's awesome. Yeah, that had to be really cool to see that and to play a part in that stepping stone to her dream becoming a reality. Has she graduated?
Yeah, she's graduated now, and now she's back here home. Fortunately, she said, rather than going off to college, which I was fully expecting, I had trying to save and all this jazz, thinking she's going to go somewhere, Elon, DePaul, somewhere, and she's like, Dad, I live in Los Angeles. I got it. Yeah, I applied to these schools. Yeah, I got in. But why are we going to pay $50,000 a year to leave Los Angeles to become an actor?
Yeah, right.
I would rather stay here. I'll go to the community college for 2 years. Maybe I get a gig, and I can go back to college after the gig. But I'll go to the community college here for 2 years, and then there's a great transfer program to UCLA. Nothing wrong with graduating from UCLA. I'll study literature so I understand storytelling, and we'll move forward from there. I'd prefer to be in Los Angeles and try to work. And she was full, really hitting it hard. And then, of course, we had COVID. COVID-19 showed up and kind of put the brakes on anything. But on the bright side, she was already here, so she didn't have to go remote learn at NYU for $70,000 to be looking at a computer in her bedroom. She's here, and and of course I'm happy to have her.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got 2 more questions left before it's 3 technically with the party words, but we kind of ask everybody for advice for filmmakers, and you've been at the epicenter of so many productions over 3 decades working. You're seeing it all happen. So what is your best advice for somebody that's an aspiring filmmaker?
Well, it's quite different. The advice from 1991 to 2021, I would say, is quite different. Now everybody has a phone. They have the camera. They're ready to go. In 1991, getting a camera was an effort. You had to figure out how to get the camera. So, my advice, if you want to be a filmmaker, is make a film. Just make a film. Get your creative friends together. Put together a story. It doesn't have to be long. You're just trying to get the ball rolling. It's not even about how good it is. It's about getting the feel of making these decisions, understanding the editing, understanding score, understanding tone, understanding pace. Do it. There's no better way to learn anything than to do it. That's what I wound up doing because I didn't study film. I was a history major, for goodness sakes, in college. I graduated with a history degree, and then I went straight into finance. And the only reason I studied history because I thought I'd be going into finance, and this was my last chance to study history. And I loved history, so I studied history. And then sure enough, I pounded the pavement and got a job at one of the top firms on Wall Street, but in Boston, and busted my ass there on the job and learned very quickly and became a moderately successful broker at a very young age. And then stopped and then came out to California. And then I didn't, like I said, when I showed up to the set on Pulp Fiction, I didn't know who Quentin Tarantino was. Reservoir Dogs was there, but this was new to me. I didn't know. I knew De Niro, but
Wow,
I'm breathing, so I knew De Niro. But the way I learned was being, and then there's a certain amount of innate, I did even from the first movie set that I was on. There's got people who had PA'd for a while, and they're like, "Oh my God, nobody's telling us which direction the shot is." I'm like, "Well, isn't that the camera? Isn't it pointing that way? So wouldn't the shot be looking that way? Maybe we should lock up over there."
Yeah, there's a certain amount of common sense to be applied.
Yeah, right. So there's just some things that were easy, but most of everything I just learned by doing it and failing sometimes. It's okay. I love failing. I love it
Successful
because
failure.
yeah, the success.
Yeah.
As long as you're open to being critical of yourself to be able to learn from mistakes, that's the best way to learn something, I think, is to lick your wounds and try again.
Well, in those years when I was a stockbroker, we went through the training program and we had all these sales seminars. And one of the most important things that I ever learned in that whole time was in one of the sales seminar, a guy said to me, "You're going to get said to the group of us, you're going to get hung up on. You're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to fail, and that is great because every time you don't succeed, you are one step closer to the person who really needs you."
Yeah.
And I've held on to that, and I believe that. Okay, all right, so that's done. And now I'm moving on to what the end goal is. I'm one step closer. I just got closer to what the end goal is.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else in the works that you'd like the audience to know about, and where can people find you at to follow your work?
I think I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I have William Paul Clark. I'm out there. I think I'm pretty easy to find. I certainly don't hide.
We found you.
Yeah.
Sought you out.
And I'm next week I'm going back to Atlanta, one of my favorite towns to work in, a great film community down there to work with Jamie Foxx, and then work with Fox again on a picture called Day Shift. J.J. Perry is directing, a renowned action specialist who's making his first foray into the director's chair.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about that. A dark action comedy, vampire hunter fun thing that will be a really joy and a challenge. And I'm looking forward to that. And that'll be great.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. And before we let you go, is there any parting words that you want to leave the audience with?
Be fearless. Be fearless. Young filmmakers, we need you because film is never going anywhere. And one of you is the next Quentin Tarantino, the next Scorsese, the next, Ron Shelton, that person. You might be the next person who inspires the person that's coming after you. So be fearless.
That's an awesome outlet.
Awesome. Mr. Clark, it was such a pleasure speaking with you today. And again, I will always tell people that you're the man that made one of my favorite films ever happen with Jackie Brown. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Fan service. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, guys. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for finding me.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.